All right. Yeah. So we are now traveling from Senegal to Nigeria. We're still staying in West Africa, but yeah, something interesting happened in Nigeria on Wednesday, and yes, we now have our very own tech bro nominated as a minister uh, in President Tinubu's ministerial cabinet. Bosun Tijani, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's there was a lot of excitement around the news yesterday. Why I think a lot of we mostly have tech people as our audience. I don't want to assume, but assuming we have those people that are not really that deep into the tech ecosystem, let's help them understand why there's a lot of excitement around Bosun Tijani being nominated on President Tinubu's ministerial cabinet.
Okay. So maybe a little background. So Bosun Tijani is the founder of CC Hub, and CC Hub is like an incubation hub, and it started out in Yaba, and today they now have about 3 hubs, I believe, across Africa. There's one in Kenya, there's one in Nigeria, and I can't remember the location for the last one, but it has been responsible for incubating a lot of startups today. So it has very significant impact on the Nigerian, or it has had very significant impact on the Nigerian tech scene. So he's also probably one of the most experienced people, because CC Hub is also it's not a young organization
At all.
So he's had that like almost a decade of experience, if not more than that. So that's why there's a lot of excitement. Or that's part of it. The other reason is the assumption is that he will be considered for the role of either the minister of. So there are like two ministries that he could possibly be considered for. So there's the communications and digital economy role, and then there's the Ministry for Science and Technology. We're not sure if these ministries would be collapsed into one. I mean, I think I saw someone saying communications should be separated from digital economy, and I think I agree, because they're like 2 different things, and you need people who know what they're doing there. But yes, these are the 2 roles he's most likely going to be considered for. Manuel has a detailed article on him, but those are the 2 roles he could be considered for. But really, I do not share the excitement that a lot of people have.
Why? Why is that?
I mean, this is a political post, and the reason a lot of people are probably excited is you expect that someone who has experience in the sector, who knows how things work, could be very instrumental in driving change in the tech scene. So we've had cases where policies basically shut down an entire sector. We had the Lagos Okada ban.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming people are looking at, they have an eye on the possible policy effects of having someone who is both experienced, understands the sector, and has the best interest of this sector at heart.
Yeah, it makes sense for them to be excited.
Of course, it makes sense for them to be excited, but you should also temper your excitement with caution. I think I told you this morning, I'm cautiously optimistic, mainly because you are operating in the government, and most of the time your policy directions are influenced by sometimes factors beyond your control. So we recently had the startup bill, and a lot of people have been asking the startup act. What are the visible effects of the startup act 1 year after? Right? You expect that the next person who takes up this position is going to drive conversations and drive visible impacts for that. That's and I can't remember. I think Bosun was probably involved in formulating the startup act, right? And it's assumed that this person will have a noticeable impact, because the startup act too was driven by Oswald Gobadia, who has a lot of experience in the tech ecosystem. So you assume that someone like that would be able to move it. So why am I cautiously optimistic?
Yeah.
Like I said, the policy that you pursue or do not pursue is influenced by your guy or your boss, who is the president. If he doesn't give you the freedom to do some of the things you want to do, you're most likely not going to be able to do them.
So based on what we know of, I mean, we've he has only been president for
A few months.
So based on what you've noticed so far, do you think he will give Bosun Tijani that freedom to make our lives better?
He hasn't even had a cabinet, so I can't see how he's going to work with these people. A lot of people we've seen speak are basically his loyalists, right? And that could also affect how this thing works. I was saying earlier that there's a lot of politics that goes in, right? So yes, there's a startup act, but the startup act is not going to the way it was built. It's not like under one person's purview. So you have a whole lot of other people that have to contribute to it. So for example, you need the startup act makes provision for funding. How are we? Is it clear cut how this funding will be provided? If the government says we are not interested in this because they were not the ones who came up with this, are they? Because yes, it's an act now, but they really don't have any obligation, or you can't really enforce it if they say, "Oh, we are not interested in this," right? So those are some of the considerations. Is there going to be enough room for him to make the changes that the tech ecosystem expects or needs? So I think yes, it's a good thing that someone, because one of the reasons people are also excited is we've seen people who you're wondering, okay, where does this person fit in? But you're seeing someone who has experience. I mean, it's not just ecosystem experience that person has. He also has educational qualifications, so he knows at the very least what should be done and also how it can be done, right? And he can always work with people. But that political aspect of it is very, very important, and I think it's something that we should all keep in mind. It's good to have these huge expectations of him as he's getting in there, but it's also important that we understand that there are probably things far beyond his control.
True.
That would affect his impact on the ecosystem. But
okay, yeah, you heard it here first. Be cautiously optimistic. Yes, as excited as we are about, like I said in the newsletter this morning, having an OG Tech Pro nominated to be a minister. Tibunu has told us, calm down. Let's wait and see. But let's just don't get your hopes up. Let's hope for the best. Let's hope for the best.